I also wanted to bring you a little bit from my village. I live in the mountains in Austria. You can see it on the top. And I work in Cologne, which is also a very dynamic city in Germany. And I travel always by train. So it's about 10, 12 hours by train. And it gives me a lot of time to think. Yeah? I think a lot about how the future will look like, how the economy will develop, and I think it's always good to have this time, and this is a very luxurious, good for me to be in the train a lot. But whenever I go from Austria and come to Cologne, I somehow leave my comfort zone, yeah? Because in Austria everything is very smooth, in the Alps very calm, and then I come to Cologne, very dynamic, creative, a lot of crazy people, I would say, when I'm coming from Austria. And then in the first time it's a little bit weird, but after 2-3 days I adapt and I feel very comfortable in Cologne. And then the same happens when I go to Austria. Yeah? I come to the Alps, everything is very quiet and everything is very calm. And I also feel first a little bit strange. Yeah? How can people live in such a calm, quiet atmosphere? And just to show you, this is always, it depends very much on the perspective, yeah? So, and this is something you learn when you are leaving your comfort zone, and I'm sure you also leave your comfort zone quite a lot. And this shows you that a lot of things we discuss also about sustainability are a thing of perspective, and it very much depends on your mindset, I would say. But why do we even think about sustainability? And a lot of people say we have to rethink the way how we do business. Why do we do this? Any ideas? I brought a figure here. Can you say the name of the figure? Can you?
7 billion.
7 billion, yes, very good. Okay, so you're probably working in the finance industry because you're used to used to big figures. 7 billion, and what could that be? 7 billion, if we think about 7 billion? Population, yeah, and we are now on the way to 8. It will be maybe 9, and by the end of the century, we will hit 10 billion, so that's the forecast. And how many people live in Europe right now? You were mentioned 400 million. If you see it a little bit greater, then it's maybe 1 billion in the United States and South America, in Americas together, another billion. In Asia, around 3-4 billion, and Africa, maybe 2 billion. So together, 8 billion already. And if you look in the future, how many will live in Europe? Will we increase? Less, or maybe 1 billion, so it will be not go up again. The Americas, also maybe 1 billion, they stay stable. The only difference will be they will speak Spanish, yeah, because the Spanish people will take over there. And what about Asia? Up a little bit, another billion, so 5, and the biggest increase will be in Africa, so they will double nearly, yeah, to 4 billion. And that already shows, also when it comes to water and other issues, immigration, migration, Africa will be a key issue, I think, yeah, in the future, because if we cannot provide a sustainable economy and living standards in Africa, I'm pretty sure we will get also some effects here and feel it in Europe in the one way or the other. But if you look to history, this was not always like this, yeah? Most of the time, how many people lived on our planet? What would you say? If you go back 5,000 years, yeah, 200, 500 million. I have it here for the East and West. So you can see it was on the whole planet only 500 million. That's the amount of people which now live. Not even in China we have more than 500 million, yeah? So you can see that this increase happened very recently, only 200 years ago, in the 19th century, 18th, 19th century. Why did it happen? What was the reason? Why did suddenly the population went up like this? Any ideas? What are the main reasons for this? Sorry? Yeah, okay. Agricultural revolution was first, yeah, because at the most of the time of history, people had to work the whole day very hard to just feed themselves and their family. And that was basically it. And then we invented fertilizer and a very efficient agriculture, and that made it possible that 9 out of 10 people could do something different. Yeah? Same is happening now with digitalization. Yeah? So you cannot see it's good or bad, but at this time it happened, and those 9 people, they started to do different businesses. They started coal mining, oil business, inventing machinery, and though the Industrial Revolution was coming after the Agricultural Revolution. And the second thing is, of course, hygiene, yeah? Medicine. Yeah? It was a very good or bad idea to go to the doctor in the Middle Ages. Yeah? Most of the time this was basically, it killed you, yeah? Because he started to cut you open and you got an infection because they didn't know about bacteria at this time. Yeah? Though it was all invented in the 19th, 18th century, we came up with penicillin, and so we could manage to have more and more people on our planet, which on the one side is very good. But it also shows for the most time of history, we did not even have to talk about sustainability because humankind was not able to manipulate the planet. Yeah? We could take all our resources. We could pollute everything because we were only 200 to 500 million people. But that's, of course, now becoming very differently. And as you were mentioning in the beginning, demography, I would say, is very key. And we somehow now need to manage not only the good sides of this industrial revolution, but now we also have to look at the downsides and how we can feed 10 billion people, provide shelter, water, and all those kind of issues. As you probably know, there's a little girl running around screaming to people, but this is only one part of the message. The other part is really that the academics, especially natural science, came up that we are now way above our planetary boundaries. What are the biggest issue we are facing right now as a planetary society? Pollution is very important, yeah?
We're using more.
Yeah. So you see climate change, that's normally what is mostly in the news. Climate change is already happening, and we already have problems because we are emitting too much CO2. But even more important is the nitrogen cycle, which means the fertilizer we use. So that we are over-fertilizing our soil. That means in the future the soil will be acid, yeah, and then nothing will grow again. And this could already happen within the next 10, 20 years. So this is a big issue. How can we feed our world economy in the future? And I saw on the list there's also people from Nestle here. So this will be a big issue for the food industry, how to produce food in a sustainable way for 10 billion people. But also the biodiversity loss. Yeah? And Einstein once said, if the last bee dies, we will have another 4 or 5 years. Yeah? And nobody knows whether this species we really need for our biological stability already died or not, yeah? Because there's not efficient data. And that's why this is basically the most pressing issue. And I'm sure that in the future years, we will talk much more about biodiversity. When I was a child, I remember I was not driving the car, but my parents did. There was a lot of black spots on the windshield, you can remember, full of insects. Now if you go on the Autobahn, German Autobahn, the windshield stays clear, which is good because you don't have to clean it, but it's bad because the insects are gone. And as a child, I also remember the small bugs. Yeah, you can remember it, the May and June bugs. And suddenly they disappeared, and my parents told me, yeah, they will come in 4 years ago again, because it's a 4-year circle. But somehow they never went up again, so they might have died out as well. And then you can see the chemical pollution. Somebody was mentioning the pollution. There we just don't know what effects microplastic and all the pollution has to our organism. So we cannot even judge about whether we are already above the planetary boundaries. And then, of course, another very important thing, that this is only the 9-10 billion people coming up, but there will be now the next big thing, which is digitalization. And by 2025, 2030, we will have 50 billion connected things. And nobody really knows how this will affect our interaction as a society. We already have some effects when we see about the media system, how the media is affected by different kind of intelligence. And this, of course, leads to completely new business ideas, yeah? Because we can now do things completely differently. Like a German company, Adidas is now trying to do 3D printing. Yeah? They try to get the school production again back to Germany, not to produce it in Asia anymore, but really make it mailer-tailed and use maybe plastic from the sea in order to provide sustainable shoes, for example. We are having digital platforms. We can suddenly, as consumer, use big machines, so this is connected to the internet, so every one of us could start producing his or her own ideas. And of course, was made by some students in Passau. They started with muesli, yeah, because they found out there's no sustainable muesli on the market, and they wanted to have good nutritional food. So they started their own company, and now in Germany, you can find it in nearly every supermarket, and you can buy it online, and you can really combine your own muesli. Yeah? And there's a lot of things which were not possible 5 or 10 years ago when I was a student. And I can tell you from my university, students are really now getting into social startups. Yeah? They want to be making an impact, and it's sometimes really difficult also for big companies to get so smart young people. Why? Because it's changing. They are now Generation Z, and I could already over the last 10 years see it. Every generation is now really different. Generation Z, and the next one will be the Generation Alpha. They are very much into a leadership style which needs very much empowerment, inspiration. They want to be a co-creator. They want to interact with robots, smart things. They also, some of them, not even make a license anymore, a driving license, because by the time I will drive a car, they say they will be autonomous. Yeah? And this is, of course, very interesting also for the car industry, because those people who now are raised up are thinking completely different. And when I talk to them about sustainability, they tell me, why should we talk even about sustainability? For us, it's just natural. That's the way how we want to live. Yeah, there's already some big change happening within the generation. And then we have artificial intelligence, of course, coming up. And there's a lot of discussion, how does artificial intelligence affect our sustainable society or not? And I see it like this. There's maybe 3 possibilities. Either we just feed in our algorithm. So that means computers will decide and act the same way as we did the last 20, 30, 50 years. That will just speed up things, but it won't help us because the algorithms will be the same, the mindset will be the same. So you can also say the computers will our destruction just faster. Not a good news. Secondly, and that's already happening, artificial intelligence is somehow more intelligent than us because they have more access to data. They calculate the maths, and they come up with a new perspective on, for example, the relationship between profitability and sustainability. Just happened in Frankfurt. I'm talking to investment firms, and they found out that their computer data shows that profitability and sustainability is not contradicting, it's rather the opposite. The more sustainable companies are, the more profitable they are. We as humans, we still have this kind of confusion in our brain. We say, okay, we could be a little bit more profitable or maybe spend more money on sustainability. The computer already sees it differently. Now we as humans could learn from this data. Yeah? We could just accept that we were thinking maybe in a wrong way the last 30 years. So that sustainability as such is not a contradiction to economic success, but rather the opposite. It's a driver of economic success, yeah? As computers see it. Then we could have a good cooperation with computers, and artificial intelligence will help humans to think in a more open and more in a new mindset. But it could also happen that we humans will not accept the answers of the computers, and then the computer might come up with its own solutions. Yeah? They will say, okay, the only thing, we can have a good development of our planet. Sustainability is not a problem. Only the humans, which still think the old way, they are standing in our way. Then the computers might come up with ideas to put us in cages or jail us up or even kill us. Yeah? So this is all happening, and it's all different scenarios. So I think the most important thing really in the future will be that human beings and computers are collaborating together and learn from each other. This will be the very important step for the future. And I think also that we are now on a crossroad. We can decide how the future will look like. Yeah? That was never happened before because I think no other generation except ours could really decide whether they want to have a bright future. Of course, we were always working for a bright future, but we also now could destroy everything if we are not changing our perspective on how business is related to society. You probably all know the sustainability goals. Yeah, they were from a long discussion, political discussion, and you have the climate action plan from Paris. So you have a lot of political action. But the problem with this is always, how can you translate it to business thinking? Yeah, I talk to a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises, and they tell me, how can I now really engage to make those goals happen? Yeah, what's my role in this? And I think the first need we really have to do, and this is happening now in Germany a lot. I cannot tell about other countries, but in Germany, I talk to Handelsblatt, FAZ, and they say, okay, there's kind of an old thinking where sustainability and profitability were seen separately. And there's a systemic thinking, and I just want to give you an example what is meant by systemic thinking. This is a nice car, a German car. You probably know it. Who has a car in this room? Okay, even if we are talking about sustainability, it's okay to have a car, at least from a German perspective. I also have a nice car, so no problem. The car, this is a part of a car. Which part is it? The brake, yeah, okay, you already know the brake, the yellow part. Does your car have a brake? Why does it have a brake?
Because I have to stop the car somehow.
To stop, okay. Does your car have a brake? Why? To stop the car? Any other solution or answer? To generate energy, so you already are, probably you are a technician, an engineer, so you think, okay. Okay, so that's a normal function. If you put the leg on the brake, the car stops. Yeah, so you would normally say, okay, I have a brake to stop the car, to slow it down. But the first guy who built a car, it was maybe Mr. Benz or Mercedes or whoever it was, some German, I guess. Or maybe some Hungarian, maybe you don't never know. When he thought about the car, why did he even invent a car? What's the reason to have a car? To go from A to B, transportation. Why don't you just walk? It's faster, yeah. So if you think from this systemic perspective, you build something to let you go faster from A to B. Why do you build in a brake? Of course, to go faster. That's the answer. Think about a car without a brake, and you would now to go to the Balaton or to Vienna. Would you go fast or slow without a brake? Very, very slow, because otherwise you will have an accident. Yeah, and that's the mind shift. That's also why Ferdinand Porsche said our sports car will have the best brakes. It's not so much the engine. Of course, we need a strong engine. But if we have the best brakes, we will win the race. Yeah? And that's how we now should think about sustainability. Sustainability is maybe like a brake, but it doesn't make your company slower. Quite the opposite. You can control it better. If there's coming a corner, you can steer, maneuver it better. And thus, sustainability has the same systemic function like a brake in the car. It makes your company more successful. And this is kind of a systemic, completely different thinking of sustainability, which now is very business-oriented. Yeah? So this is basic. And this idea was not myself. Yeah? It came from Ludwig Erhard. He was in Germany. In Germany, after the war, we had the discussion, should we have a very socialist country, where we have the social solidarity as the most important thing, or should we have free markets like the United States? And then the Germans found their own answer, I would say, which says, why not have both? Yeah? Solidarity and free markets is the same, like a social market economy. And that's basically now we have to, I think, have the same systemic thinking and build sustainable market economies. That's the goal of our generation. Why? Because now environmental issues, ecological issues are becoming as important as social issues maybe 50 years ago. So this old conflict between sustainability, profitability, I call it trade-off thinking, which you find in a lot of business books. You find it also in business ethics books, so you find it everywhere, is a normative perspective which gives you no solution to solve it. That's the problem. Once you start seeing it as a trade-off, at least in Western logic, you bring it not together again. Yeah? If you see the brake only to slow down the car, okay, then if you want to have a faster car, build out the brake, of course. Yeah? That's what some businesses said 10 years ago. If you want to make more profit, forget about sustainability. Yeah? You make it really profitable. So this was this old school thinking. The new school thinking really is more in the line of another great economist, Schumpeter. You probably know Schumpeter, the Austrian economist. He was inventing the innovation theory. He was not thinking about sustainability, but already at his time he said, we need to find the sweet spot. We need to find the spot where the interests of the organization and the interests of society, of the stakeholders, systemically co-join. Why? Because there we come up with new processes, new markets, new products, new business models. So the inventor of the innovation theory already, I think, brought a good solution how we systematically integrate sustainability into any company by the R&D and basically by the sweet spot where we come to innovation. A lot of companies ask me, how can I become more innovative? I say, okay, then just take sustainability serious and come up with innovative solutions, because that's the biggest sweet spot we have right now, because society wants to be sustainable, have a sustainable development, and the only one who really can provide the solutions for it is business. Yeah? The business, and I was talking to Ed Freeman, the inventor of the stakeholder theory, he said, we are rewriting the story of business, and we have to make sure that business is, in this case, the good guy, the hero. Yeah? Business cannot be the bad guy. Yeah? Every story has a good and bad guy. And to make this sure, we have to explain to society what's the impact of business towards a sustainable development, and this can only be through innovation. Yeah? And there, I think business is even more important than politics. We should not so much only look to politics, we really can go from a business perspective further. So sustainable innovation, this is now coming up. I talked to a lot of digitalization guys who said, okay, we cannot just digitalize everything because it's also causing a lot of problems. We really have to also think about what kind of effect does those innovation have to society. I made a nice 4 pictures, basically. We have not responsible, technical, not possible. This is like cloning. We don't have to care about it, but we have to be careful that it's not happening, or if it's happening, we need to find regulation for it. Then we have things which are not responsible and technically possible, like nuclear bombs, for example. There we already have some agreements. I hope they will hold in the future. Then we have things which are responsible and technically possible. That's already happening, like electric cars, so a lot of investments are going this direction. But what is most, I think, interesting for business is things which are responsible, sustainable, but not yet possible, because that's where you should invest your money and create new business model, new products, because this is where you win the markets of the future. It's not about the markets of today, because a lot of the markets of today will diminish. We have now a big global, I would say, fight who gets the markets of the future, and the sustainability market will be one of the most important ones. So this is why the SDGs, I think, can be a good indication for a lot of companies which direction to invest and where to develop the innovations of the future. Then I was asked always about, is this really profitability, sustainability work together? And there's hundreds of studies. You can see it. I can also provide it to you. Ökom Research, A.T. Kearney, University of Oxford, Edelman Trust Barometer. They all come to one conclusion. 90% of all studies show that there is a positive correlation between sustainability and profitability. Yeah, I hope that we don't have to have these discussions anymore. 5 years ago, we still discussed it. This is now, I think, proven also by the big data that also there's a strong correlation between sustainability and the stock price, and a lot of the CEOs now even think that sustainability is a big contribution also to the business success. The problem we have is really the middle management, because the middle managers are mainly grown up and developed in a different paradigm for the last 20, 30 years. Yeah? And a big personal consultancy, one of the biggest in Germany, came up to me and said, all our incentive and bonus systems are not working anymore, yeah? Because we have not integrated the idea of impact and sustainability. So there's also now a lot of rethinking how to manage HR, yeah? Do HR management in the future, and how you bring those new ideas also to the middle management of the companies. If I had more time, I could go through all the studies, but I want to show you one very important study. It's from Harvard University. And what they did, they clustered 4 different types of companies. First of all, very old school coal electricity, so they produce electricity by coal or oil or whatever. And you can see the alpha is a risk-adjusted return. So how much do I get back, return on investment, compared to the risk I take? You can already see you get minus 3%. Would you invest in such a company? No, you get 3% less than you would have needed for the risk you take. Yeah? You can earn money with it, but it's not rational, and that's why a lot of investors are going out of coal and oil. Yeah? PIMCO, for example, also Allianz in the future will not insure coal anymore. We are going out of oil, not only because we want to save the world, but it's also from an investment point of view, not a good decision. Then you have 80% of the companies which are kind of doing business as usual, like the old business model established over the last decades, and they are a little bit green. Yeah? They start having a CSR report, maybe they have some kind of CSR investments. But you can see those companies are mainly achieving market average, which is, of course, logical, because most of your companies probably are like this. Yeah? So you are basically within the market. Then we have companies which are really green. Startups, food chains or coffee shops. Young students open kind of a sustainable coffee shop. And if you talk to them, they say, okay, I do it to save the world, not about the money. But if you analyze those kind of business models, you find out, compared to the risk they take, they are outperforming the market. Yeah? So that's already very interesting, that if you, and comes natural, if you now open a bakery in Budapest, would you open a biological or a conventional bakery? A biological, not only because it's more sustainable, but it also has a bigger market opportunities, of course, and you get a premium price for the products. But which is even more interesting is that there is companies who are not kind of this greenish, so they are kind of normal businesses, but start to rebuild their business models. Yeah? They say, okay, we as a big company, we might not have fair trade coffee, and we might not even have recycling paper. But what we really do is, in our core business, we develop new sustainable products. We are trying to help our consumers to become more sustainable. We really find and try to find the best leverage for us from an economic perspective to make our sustainable business models work. And you can see those are already 6% over market average. Yeah? And that's why, for example, Abaresk and others are systematically now investing in those kind of companies. It's about 5, 10, 15%, depends how you see it, of the companies are like this. So why do investors not invest more money into those companies? If this is obviously the best alternative as an investor. Because they don't exist. Yeah, there's not so many. So I always tell my young students, start a sustainable business. You will get enough investors investing money, because they are systematically now looking for those kind of business models which are systematically integrating business and sustainability in one business model. And they do it, of course, maybe to save the world, but it's also, from a rational point of view, the best choice for your money, yeah? Because you get 6% higher average return on investment compared to the risk you take. So it's all about, and you heard the CEOs from the United States, about purpose and positive impact in the future. Yeah? So it's not about profit maximization as a goal for companies anymore, or it's also not about philanthropy. Yeah? In the past, we sometimes said, okay, giving back to society is important. No, it's really about creating a purpose and a positive impact scenario for your company. Because all the old models get under social pressure, and also through the financial crisis, the poor philanthropic models are not working anymore, so we cannot spoil any money just for random causes. And this means that in the future we will talk much more about sharing economy, CSR, social entrepreneurship, and inclusive business. And the good news is it's coming from business. It's not an academic discussion anymore. To be honest, academia is a little bit behind. Yeah? Politicians are behind, academia is behind. Those new concepts are coming really from the business world, and this makes me very positive when it comes how or whether we can find solutions. I have to now finish. I only have 2 minutes, and as you can see, I could talk maybe a little longer, but we can have talk later. That's why I started 5 years to say we don't need sustainability manager. Yeah, it's always, we have a sustainability manager or whatever. No, you cannot manage sustainability. What we really need is sustainable management, which means we need to integrate sustainability in the controlling system. I work together with big German companies to not only have a financial controlling, but a sustainability controlling, and they really want to steer their company by non-financial KPIs in the future. Why? Because we have strong proof that the non-financial KPIs are front-running the financial performance. Yeah? So if you know that you have a good sustainability performance, you will know that as a CEO that in the future you also make money, which is good. Yeah? So I have finally come up with better figures than the conventional controlling. Marketing, HR, so you have to really change the whole different functions of business and integrate sustainability systemically. That's Porter. Don't only think about avoiding negative impact. I was at a big brewery convention, and somebody was telling me, a sustainability officer, we have a good strategy, 4 times 0. 0 waste, 0 CO2, 0 unresponsible drinking, and 0 working accidents. And then I said, this is very easy to achieve the goal. How can you achieve it? I can achieve it tomorrow. So hire me and I can achieve this 0 goal strategy tomorrow. You just close your company. Yeah, because what is often forgotten about sustainability, the positive impact. Yeah, it's not so much to only avoid the negative, it's also what is the positive impact. And I was having discussions with the German car industry. Why do you always want to reduce CO2? Why you're not thinking about cars which are cleaning the air? Yeah, to have a positive impact, that the car who goes through Budapest takes the air and cleans it like a vacuum cleaner, yeah. And at the back there's the fresh air coming out of the car, and you are laughing at this, but the Koreans are now doing it, yeah. So we really see that those ideas, if we don't have it ourselves, they come from Asia in the future. And that's my last slide, I promise. And then do I have one more minute? 1 more minute, okay. This is, I think, the most important slide because it shows the difference between traditional and sustainable management. Traditional management is mainly about input-output thinking, efficiency. Yeah, that's what you learn at business school. How can you increase the output, more cars, more turnover, more profit, and at the same time decrease the input, less salaries or less material or whatever. All about efficiency, and the more efficiency you are with your business model, the more you grow and the more you make profit. But in the future, it's not about this input-output anymore. It's really about what kind of impact your company wants to achieve for society. Yeah? For a car manufacturer, this could mean we want to live in a CO2-neutral mobility. What do we need for this? The outcome. Therefore, we need car sharing. We need new interfaces between trains and cars, and maybe we need quadrocopters, whatever. So we need new systems. And then I come up with a completely new output. Then I think, okay, if I'm a car manufacturer building diesel engines, this does not help for this impact I have in mind. Yeah? So I have to change my output. I have to come up with maybe digital platforms like BMW is doing now with Drive Now platform. So they might say, we are not in the future producing cars anymore, but we want to work on this mobility idea we have. We change the outcome, and therefore we need different output, and this, of course, also leads to different input. We need other engineers, electric engineers, we need IT people. Yeah? So this is really steering the company from the future to the present. Yeah? And that's what's coming up new as a new trend. Not so much look to the past, but really think the present from the future. And therefore, of course, you need new controlling systems. The old controlling systems are always looking at the past. And if you make profit today, it means you did right things in the past. But it will not tell you whether you make profit in 5 years. It's not possible. Therefore, you need to come up with new KPIs. And of course, I'm pretty sure that the Asians also will play a very important role. 5 years ago, I said, okay, maybe in the future, a Chinese professor will stand here and tell you about sustainability. People were also laughing, but now, as you know, the scoring model they are developing, it was quite a shock to the German medium-sized companies, because suddenly the Chinese government is telling their understanding of sustainable development of a society and tells the German companies that's how you should act in the future. Yeah? And I think it's maybe not a good development, but it's also because we are not developing our idea of a free sustainability fast enough. Yeah? And that's basically only possible if we work together. You are all invited to come to Bled. We will have a big Academy of Management conference there in October, which is about responsible leadership. And this shows that also the Americans are now coming to Europe to learn about this new sustainable developments. Why? Because I think Europe is a natural place for this, yeah? Because we invented the social market economy. We are always very open for environmental issues. So I think really that Europe could be a leader, a global leader in this field. And it's also our last opportunity, because social media, biotechnology, nanotechnology all went to the United States. But the green markets, the green technology, that could be a big billion market in the future, and that could be where the European businesses have a share of, and we should work very hard together to be the market leader in this very important global market for the future. Thank you very much. Sorry for the time.